am to hear him speak. So without further ado, please help me welcome Brandon Sanderson.
Thank you very much, guys. This is, I believe, my first time signing in Austin, so I am here in part because so many of you complain when I go to Houston. They don't come to Austin, so I'm here this time. What I'm going to do today, first I'm going to unwrap this microphone, maybe. What I'm going to do is I will blab at you for like 7 minutes or so. This is what happens when a guy who's university trained gets given a microphone, right? I have a little speech thing. I promise it won't be too long or painful. After that, we're going to do a Q&A. And your questions will be rewarded with prizes. I have these nifty little postcard things that what they are is they are from the books, and it's a nice, like, happy little postcard on one side, and then it's lenticular. You turn it, and the city gets destroyed to match, getting turned to steel or something like that from the book. So they're very apocalyptic and fun. And then after that, I'll do a reading, and my reading is going to be from the third Stormlight book. So there's some of you that are very eager about that. And the reading's about 20 minutes long, so it's a little bit longer of a reading, which means that altogether this will be about 45 minutes long. So my little speech thing, this starts with a story of me making a bad decision. See, I made a bad decision about 10 years ago. I have this little series called Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians, which is this fun series that I had sent out to potentially be published, and I had 3 publishers get back to me all wanting to publish it, which was a new experience to me. Because with my first books that I'd sold, Elantris and Mistborn, I had sold those to Tor Books, and hadn't really shopped because that was Robert Jordan's publisher. He was my favorite writer. That's where I wanted to be, right? And so when they said, yes, I'll publish these books, I said, great, let's do it. But with these younger books, these middle grade books, I sent them out, and my agent sent them out actually, and we got 3 responses all wanting to buy them, and I had to choose among publishers. And this was very difficult for me, but I called and interviewed the different editors. I ended up making a choice. Now, this turned out to be the wrong choice, because about 6 months after I chose my publisher, the editor got a new job at a different publisher and left, and I got orphaned. This is what we call it in the business, when your editor leaves you. And it's not the kind of orphaning that turns you into Batman. It's the kind of orphaning where your books get given to somebody else at the publisher. And sometimes that works out all right. For me, the new editor just didn't really care about the books. While the first one had good cover and had nice editing and things like that and sold very well, the second one had a terrible cover, almost no editing, and the sales nosedived. And that killed the series, basically killed it dead. And so I started thinking a lot about choice, because that choice had been so instrumental in what happened with those books. And it turns out, I don't know if there's any psychologists here, but I read up a lot on it, and it turns out that humans are kind of bad at choice. Yeah, the psychologists are all nodding. We're okay if we have 2 choices, but if you add more than 2, we kind of have this problem making decisions. And you can see this easily by, going with a group of friends and saying, hey, where do you guys want to go to dinner? And there can be 10 of you together and no one will offer an option because it's there's too many options. And there's also this research. Now, it's psychology, so the research all contradicts itself. But some of the research says that the more choices we have, the harder it is to make a choice. And once we do, the worse we generally feel about that choice, unless we just double down on it and bunker in and say, no, this was absolutely the right choice. And this is really interesting to me, because it actually has to do with writing. I have a lot of writers come through my line, and one of the things that they ask me about, number 1 questions I get, is about writer's block. And it occurs to me that writer's block is kind of like the paralyzation that happens when you have a lot of choices, because it's the blank page, right? Which is the ultimate choice. What do I put on this page. And that can be really paralyzing to writers sometimes, particularly newer writers. And I understand this feeling because it happened to me again, this time with the Reckoners books that we're here celebrating. Actually, #1 on the New York Times list. Yay! I get to brag. And this series, when I sent it out, I once again had several publishers come to me wanting to publish it. And it was really stressful because I remembered what happened to the Alcatraz books. And I knew I'd made the wrong choice then. And I'm like, how do I avoid that happening again, right? How do I prevent this bad decision from ruining the series? And it occurs to me that a lot of people, when they're hitting this writer's block problem, it's less about how do I make the right choice and more about how do I not screw this up, right? What if I write the wrong thing? And that's a big deal in writing. One of the things you have to learn is that sometimes you will write the wrong thing, and that's okay. In fact, the way I get past writer's block, if I ever have feeling like I don't know what to write, I just write anyway. I have ninjas attack, whatever, right? Do something, write something. And what happens is if I write the scene, even knowing that it's the wrong way to write it, my subconscious can start working on it. And then the next day I can put the scene I wrote aside and I can write it the right way. And this works 99 out of 100 times. But it seems to me newer writers have this trouble of they don't want to commit something to the page that's wrong because that will prove that they're a bad writer or something like that. They don't give themselves permission to fail. And I think this is the real important thing with any kind of artwork and any kind of decision. You take the information you have and then give yourself permission to make the wrong choice. With the Reckoners, I ended up making the right choice. My editor didn't leave this time. It was wonderful. Yay! She's still there. She's great. They supported the books. Everything went wonderfully. But the moral of the story is more about the fact that if I hadn't made a choice, then the books would have never come out. And if you want to be a writer and you're having these moments of worry about what you're writing, give yourself permission to write it poorly. If you do that, you'll actually succeed a little more often. So give that a try. Now, can I have a volunteer from the audience? You want to do this? All right, come on up. Your job is when I call on somebody for a question to run over and give them one of these things. And then you can have one as a thank you for doing this, okay? All right, so there's a lot of people here. I'm going to do the Q&A by section. So we're going to start with this section over here. Anyone who has a question, raise your hand. Checkered shirt.
As a fan of The Wheel of Time, what was it like taking over a series that had become so large and famous?
Oh, wow. What was it like taking over The Wheel of Time as a fan? Now, you can put your hands down. I'm going to do it by section. When we come to your section, raise your hand. It was really, really frightening, right? Because I've been reading these books since I was 14 or 15, and I didn't want to be the person who screwed up the Wheel of Time. It's one of these sort of things like I was talking about, right? What if I get known in history as the person who messed this up? But the reason I actually went with it, I actually had a really big moment of decision with those, where I realized if I said no and then someone else screwed it up, it was my fault too. The only way for it to not be my fault was to do it and not screw it up. And so it was a huge honor, but it was really, really frightening. And I tried originally to try and match his voice, the first few things that I wrote, and it came off as parody. Everybody was tugging on their braids and things like that. That's a Wheel of Time joke for you guys. But once I realized, hey, if I can match the character voices rather than trying to match Robert Jordan's voice, the scenes work better. That ended up working. Let's go to this question right here.
I really enjoy the theological and philosophical themes in a lot of your works. How do you incorporate those, and how do you think about the characters in those kind of conversations?
So the question is, he likes the theological and philosophical themes in my works. How do I go about making those? and putting those in. My books are a reflection of whatever I'm thinking about and passionate about at the time. But I am not a person who feels that a story should have a moral injected. More, I feel like creating characters who are passionate about something and seeing where their thinking about things leads me. And this, I believe, creates kind of a more authentic story. Now, there are other people who have a different philosophy and they create great books, and that's fine. C.S. Lewis and Tolkien apparently argued over this point, how much your story should be didactic. I believe that the story should be foremost about characters who are passionate about things, and I want to explore who they are and how they interact with the world around them. But, you know, the things I'm interested in are going to worm their way in. Let's do questions right in this group. Anybody? Go for it.
How did you choose the publisher for the Reckoner series?
How did I choose the publisher for the Reckoner series? At the end of the day, the deciding factor was that the publisher was the one who published books by a friend of mine, James Dashner. He did The Maze Runner. And that was the deciding factor. I thought they'd done a really good job with The Maze Runner. What was your question?
How'd you write your book step by step?
How do I write my book step by step? They're laughing because that's a huge question.
Writing excuses.
I would say I use an outline. Not every author uses an outline, but everyone, I think, should try one out and see if it helps them. I outline backward. So I start with what I want to have happen in the story, and I build an outline, and then I write forward. So start with an idea of something cool, write down bullet points of what can I do in the story to earn that ending, and then I write forward. All right, what's your question?
If you are you gonna have the same editor? Did you have the same editor for the Dark Talent book?
Oh, the Dark Talent. So did I have the same editor for the Dark Talent? No. The Alcatraz books, good question. The Alcatraz books, I eventually took back from that publisher that I didn't think was taking care of them. And I gave them to a new editor at a publisher who had done some of my other books. And they've done a wonderful job. In fact, they got re-released. So there's a happy ending to that story, too. There's brand new editions out. And the fifth book will come out sometime, we think, August. All right, go ahead.
Do you come up with the designs, or artists come up with the designs, or you come up with like the Bridge 4 tattoo?
Oh, the Bridge 4 tattoo and the design. So everything that happens inside the books, meaning not the cover, anything inside from front cover to back cover, I'm in charge of. I don't design them all myself. Usually that's done by by Isaac Stewart, who's one of my assistants. He was a professional artist on video games for years, and I hired him away to do design work. And so we'll sit down and I'll say, it looks something like this. And he'll do some sketches. And I'll be like, oh, that one's close. Do like 10 versions of this. And then he'll do like 10 versions of that. And I'll say, okay, this is the one that looks right. Let's go with that, refine it some more, and things like that. And that's how we come up with a lot of our symbols and our maps. All right, anyone back over here in this region? All right, in the hat and the beard.
How much of the genre right now is getting adapted to TV and film? Have you given thought to that with your work? And what do you think would be most adaptable to either film or TV?
So the question is, have I given thought to having my things adapted into film or TV? And what do I think would work the best? I have given thought to it. I'm not one of these authors that's scared of an adaptation. If they make a bad adaptation, the worst thing that can happen is that there's a bad film. Whatever, right? The book stays the same. And the best thing that can happen is you get a really cool adaptation that brings a lot of people to the story. And so I think it's all upside. So I would like to be involved if they let me, but they're Hollywood, so they're weird. And so I'm doing my best. I think that Mistborn or Steelheart, either one of those would make really great films. I think Stormlight Archive is too big for a film, and that's more toward television or something like that. All right, right here.
When you're switching between books that you're writing like multiple times, like how do you get back into the characters?
How do I get back into the characters in a book if I'm switching between them? It is actually one of the hardest things to do. And I try really hard not to stop writing new fiction on a book, if possible. I can usually be revising one, writing another, and doing an outline for a third. But if I start writing on two, then there's trouble. What I found is if I have to leave something else alone for a while, that I actually don't want to pick it up right where I stopped. I either want to back up and rewrite some scenes, or I want to jump forward to something that I know is going to work, that's exciting or whatever, and write that forward, and then fill in the gap afterward. And do that. It takes a lot of revisions to fix something like that, though, so I try to arrange my career so that I don't have to do that very often. The reason we got 2 Mistborn books recently is because I had to stop one of them in the middle to do revisions on to do one of the Wheel of Time books. That was a contract I had. The Mistborn book was a side project at that time, and when I came back to it years later, I couldn't get that momentum back, so I actually jumped in my outline to the next book and wrote that, because I could start fresh, and then I went back after I was into the characters, and that's why 2 of them came out in rapid succession. All right, yellow shirt right there.
Yes, how large are the shard worlds compared to Earth?
How large are the shard worlds compared to Earth? It depends on the one you're talking about. You can until we'll release the when we do the Cosmere collection, we will talk about some of the relative sizes. Most of them are around Earth-sized. Roshar's smaller, but it depends on the planet. Some of them are smaller, some of them are larger. Right here, Beard.
So I've got 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one is, how did you balance being an educator and writing at the same time? Because that is the hardest thing on the planet.
Yeah. How did I balance being an educator and a writer at the same time? It is really hard, because being an educator takes a lot of your time. The truth is, I'm not a real educator. No, really. My wife was a school teacher. She was a real educator. I teach 1 class, 1 night a week, for 3 hours, and it's really just a lecture followed by a workshop. And so I don't have a lot of the time constraints. By the time that I was really teaching, I had teaching credentials, I already had published. So I only had to do 1 year as both, and that was a hard year. That's a year where I was teaching freshman comp and had a full course load and things like that. That one wore me out, but after that, I was able to drop down to just the 1 class. All right, Steelheart.
Hey, how is the research for Rhythmatist 2 going?
How's the research for Rhythmatist 2 going? It is done. The outline is really good. The book is not done. The research is done. Let's get that straight. The research went really well. I'm excited about the book. I read 6 nonfiction books, but I have to finish Stormlight 3 before I can write it. Right here.
Do the Parshindi have gem hearts?
Do the Parshendi have gem hearts? That is a Raffo.
Oh.
Read and find out. I gotta move on. You can ask your questions when you come through the line. Let's do over here. All right, right there.
So this is about the Reckoner series.
Uh-huh.
I've noticed that there are a lot of different categories of epics.
Yes.
Did you think about any categories that you didn't put into the books?
Did I think about any categories of epics that I didn't put in the books? Yes, I did. As a comic book nerd, I had lots of categories of superheroes that as I saw them in my head. And this is kind of like reaching back to my teenage years and looking at, these kind of share a similar power type and things like that. That's what you're getting from these books, is kind of my nerdy stuff. And so there are categories that I didn't deal with. I tried to kind of theme a lot of the powers either toward matter transformation, matter manipulation, or alternate universe stuff, just to kind of have some themes. And so I'm actually doing a series that takes place in the same universe, different characters that takes place, and all of the powers in that will be alternate dimension themed. It's going to be really cool. But they're announcing that tomorrow. So. What's your question?
I was wondering if you had a thing for girls with red hair, because
I have a thing for girls with red hair. I like all different types of hair. Let's just go with that. All right. I particularly like dark hair like my wife has. Let's do this guy right back there. What is my favorite series that I've written? I'm glad you asked that, because there actually isn't an answer, but people always ask it. It's like trying to choose a favorite child. They are all my favorites. All 3 of my little boys are my favorite, and all of my series are my favorite. Let's go right here.
What's a good book that you've been reading?
What's a good book that I've been reading? So I'm currently reading City of Stairs. My assistant loves it. I've only gotten a couple chapters in. Good so far. Let's see, what's other good stuff? I've read the first book of The Expanse. Kids, it's not for you. There's a lot of cursing in that one, but it's based on it. The TV show is based on it, and my friends wrote it, and so I wanted to see how it was, and it was very good. What else have I been reading? Uprooted by Naomi Novik was really good also. I read that last summer. All right, go ahead.
What is the hardest book that you've written? What was the
Hardest book that I've written by far was A Memory of Life, the Last Wheel of Time book. Easily the hardest. Oh, thank you. Somebody is happy that was hard. No, somebody thought it turned out all right. It was really hard, matching, all the character voices, keeping track of everything, and pulling together stuff that Robert Jordan worked on for like 18 years plus, and making good on as many of them as I could was really, really difficult. Go ahead.
What was the book you got like the most inspiration to write?
Most inspiration to write. What book? Probably. That's a really hard question because they all have lots of inspiration. I'd say the most is probably Way of Kings, just because it kind of sat in my head for the longest time before getting written. So, all right, let's go over here on the ground. That dude right there.
So you're obviously a very prolific writer and you write a lot. Do you like to use a computer or pencil and paper?
Do I like to use computer or pencil and paper? Pencil and paper is way too slow. I like to use a computer. All right, right here in the yellowish, neonish, greenish shirt.
If you could have an epic power, what type of power?
If I could have an epic power, I would choose to be able to fly, because I've always wanted to be able to fly. That's not the smart answer. You should choose something like being able to summon anything you want at any time, or being invulnerable. But yeah, all right. This guy is hopping up and down, so we're gonna yeah. How many books have I written? Like 40. We still got some cards? Good. All right. Yes, the lady two over from him. How's it going on Nightblood, the sequel to Warbreaker? Slowly but surely. I'm going to write Stormlight 3, then I'll write Arithmetis 2, then I'll write the next Wax and Wane, which will end that series, and then I'm going to do the new series for Random House, and that's the foreseeable future for me. All right, this guy right here. Either one of you think next to each other, so I don't know.
What was the book that was the most fun to write of all the books?
What was the book that was the most fun to write? Probably Alcatraz versus the Librarians, because it's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. All right, right here.
Oh, me.
Yes.
So me and my friend Lou,
Mm-hmm.
we are in this team. We're in a shirt of it. It's this book club thing. There's 20 books. Steel Armor is one of them. You have to read as many as you can. Then people in your group get chosen to compete in this thing. We're competing tomorrow, and it's really awesome. And
Awesome. So you're competing in a thing where you had to read my book, among others.
did you know about this?
I had no idea about this. This is great. All right, last question right here.
Your day, what's your schedule like?
What's my schedule like? So my schedule is I get up at noon because I'm a writer. I am not, a businessman. I get up at noon. I write from noon until 5. I take a shower. I go hang out with my kids and my wife from 5:30 until 8:30 or 9:30. Then I go back to work at 10, and I work until 2 or 3 in the morning. So that's my schedule. All right, thank you very much. You can keep those and give them out to your friends or whatever. Thank you for your help. I'm going to do a few quick announcements, and then we have the reading. So that's still going to take us a little while. So quick announcements. Number 1, if you want a photo with me, you can do that up there. I ask that you have your camera out already, that it be on photo and not video. What we're going to do is one of these wonderful people will take your camera or phone from you, and then pay attention to this. You come and position yourself where you want the photo to get taken while I'm signing your books. She will count to 3. I will look up on 3. I'm like a Pavlovian trained dog. Right? It's like 1, 2, 3. And then she will snap the photo, and then you can come around and talk to me, ask me questions, things like that. But let's do the photo first. This is to keep me from staring at your camera for a long time while you get in position and things like that, so that I'm actually signing books. This will take a little while. There's a lot of you. If you have a higher number, you may want to go visit the cafe and things like that. The store, they said, is open till 11. I'll be here till, I'm going to guess, 9:30 or 10 at the earliest. So as long as you check back, come back around 9 and check and make sure I'm still here, you'll be fine. I'm not going to take off without you as long as you're back by 9. But you can gauge that on your own. I also want to give a thank you to the bookstore. I love stores like this. I love that they have authors in. I know sometimes books are a little cheaper online, but that's because the online bookstores don't have to maintain awesome staff like this. They don't have to have an event space like this. They don't have to do all of this extra work, so you can have awesome things like my signing here. So thank you for patronizing them. And the good kind of patronize. And thank you guys for coming to support me. So I'm going to do the reading right now. It's going to be, like I